Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to Afternoons with the Ambassador. And once again, I've got my good friend Mounds of Elysium with me today. Unfortunately, our friend Adega is got some technical difficulties and some other live things that have come up, so he's not going to be able to join us today. But we're going to be continuing our review of Babylon 5 Season 1, and today we're going to be talking about the episode By Any Means Necessary. Mountains, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks. And once again, thanks for having me on the show.
You're welcome. And to the chat, and as the old saying goes, speak of the devil, but he is by no means a devil. Adega Outlaw is in the chat. Adega, good to see you, my friend. Thank you for being here. And hope you enjoy the stream from this side of things. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about the episode By Any Means Necessary. And this, I did not intend for this episode to come up when it did and everything, considering what's going on in the real world and everything. But we will comment. We will discuss this episode regardless of that fact. And also to the chat, Fiona Wolf and Just Another Nerd. Greetings, my friends. Thank you for being here. I do appreciate it. So, Mountains, let's jump in and let's tackle this sucker. Where you want to start?
I suppose we'll do the elephant in the room first. The
labor strike
issue,
yeah,
and then I suppose the Jaquan, because that also has a lot of
oh yes, yeah, with Shakar and Lothando and Jakar's whole, his High Holy Day and everything, dealing with his religious belief and everything. The religious leader from Narn history, Jaquan. So, yeah, but this has been an interesting episode in a lot of ways because it deals with two different dichotomies or two different social topics and everything. One being labor of the future and, well, to a degree, religion of the future. So, and I know this is something we've touched upon before in terms of like religious belief and everything with like the episode Believers and so on. But you do have a touch of this in this episode dealing with the whole conflict between ambassadors Shakar and Londo Malari. So
I suppose in this with the, I was like reading through the Lurker's Guide and the Babylon Wiki, and just before we begin, like, what did it say? The Rush Act, which is a major part of the plot point. It was from the Earth-Membari War, which said dealt with military facilities so that strikers or workers couldn't strike and prevent critical work or war industry continuing.
Okay.
And considering the other like plots leading up to this, it leads the Home Guard and how Earth is changing into a more anti-alien with the Clark faction. This kind of leads into a lot of it is why they invoked the Rush Act. They have antipathy or antagonism towards alien species. So that could be why on the Earth Cub side things escalated so quickly with Oren Zento. That they didn't leave Sinclair, who did seem to have a solution very early on, but neither Naoma or Oren Zento wanted to listen to him.
Yeah. So, well, and honestly, you bring a lot of context because honestly, I had no idea what the Rush Act was outside of what they mentioned in the TV show. So I appreciate you bringing that context. And honestly, I can understand why that act is in place, but at the same time, you're violating people's ability to protest unfair work conditions. And that's honestly, in my opinion, not entirely a good thing. Now, am I a big supporter of unions and so on? I don't mean one way or the other. I'll just put it that way. I don't have a dog in that fight and everything. So I can see why a lot of people think unions are good. And on the other hand, I can see why some people say, well, unions are kind of outdated and outmoded and what have you. So I'm not going to go I'm not going to go super. I'm not going to go hard on one position or another because, as I said, I don't have a dog in that fight. So,
I'd be the
but
same. Oh, sorry. I'd say I'm on. I can see benefits of both. I see the benefits of unions, and I see their negative side too. So I'm on the fence.
and I don't know if Adega is being facetious or if he's being sincere, but he brings up a interesting comment. The Rush Act was named after Rush Limbaugh and how he would deal with unions if he ever had the authority. So I hope that's not true, Adega. If it is,
No, that's
okay.
true. That was
Okay.
Straczynski said that's where he got the inspiration from.
Oh, okay. Well, I was not aware of that. Interesting. But yeah, this is the other topic and everything that they cover in this episode is dealing with the continuing conflict between Londo and Shakar and everything. And this time it gets a little more personal because they're dealing with Narn religious belief and the fact that due to no one's fault specifically, the Jaquan Eth, this plant that was needed for Jakar's religious ceremonies and everything, gets destroyed during a shipping accident there on the station, and a lot of people almost get hurt. So, and then of course you've got there's some conflict right there between the two of them for the simple fact that Londo makes the comment, "Do you really think I've forgotten about what your planet has done, your people have done to my world, Ragesh 3, and my nephew? Oh no." He's like, this is payback. And Londo's really putting the screws to Shakar and everything. Because if you remember, this season, everything started with that whole situation. And now we've got a little bit of a turnaround and everything for that situation.
Yeah, Londo is pushing it as more personal, I think, than his government because Emperor Turan, I think he won't him onto the second season. He's very much looking to ease tensions with Narn, and I don't think he personally would have supported Londo's actions. But Londo wanted payback with Jakar. And I had been wondering because in the next episode, we see with the incident with the eye, Londo at this stage would have known that it was in hand. He had agents and probably had been told, we have it. So he has more confidence and is willing to lash out than if it wasn't the case, I think.
Yeah. Well, and Fiona Wolf brings up a good point about this back and forth between Londo and Shakar. It does escalate. It does get worse as time goes on, unfortunately. And this is just them sharpening their daggers for one another. Because let's be candid here, Londo and Jakar, through at least the first 3 seasons of the show, they don't really like each other all that much. They actually detest one another rather staunchly. And, I can understand Londo's position because he's wanting to get a little bit of payback, even if it's just personal from his own end, on Jakar and what Jakar's people have done to the planet Ragesh 3. But at the same time, I understand Shakar's point as well, because this is a religious ceremony that he's wanting to perform. It is important for him. It's important for those that do follow that particular religious belief, who do follow the teachings of, I guess you would call him a prophet or what have you, the prophet Shaquan and everything from Narn culture and everything. So it's difficult to try and pick a side because both sides do have validity. Even though Londo's being the more immature and everything in a lot of respects, you understand what he's doing. He's doing this as payback for his nephew, for his family. But at the same time, which has more validity? And honestly, I don't want to sound like I'm hedging my bets or anything, but both sides have a valid reason for going to the extremes that they go to. Do I agree with those extremes particularly, or would I do them myself? No. But this is an episode where you have to put yourself in the other person's shoes. And that's not just Jakar and Londo, but that's also the dock workers. That's also Sinclair and the command staff and everybody else. And
Even
it's,
Zento.
yeah, even Oren Zento. This guy is a labor negotiator, which means he has this persona as being kind of a scumbag and everything, maybe. But at the same time, he's trying to do what's best for everybody involved. That's the important thing.
I think in many cases he is correct. They don't have the extra budget to give the workers.
No.
And it leads back to the idea of home guard. The money is being poured into the military, so it just isn't there. And if the workers got what they wanted on Babylon 5, it looks small. You could say, why don't you give it to them? They obviously need it and deserve it. Yes. But then there are so many other colonies that they'd have to provide the same to, and EarthGov probably couldn't support that. So you can understand Oren Zento as well. He has to keep financial security for EarthGov as well as trying to settle the situation. Now, if he didn't have the stick of the Rush Act, he may have been more conciliatory and they may have come up with some other solution. But you can still understand his point.
Yeah, and because I can agree with the Connolly. I forget her first name and everything, but she's the dock worker representative, Connolly. I can understand her position. She's trying to get a fair shake for her bunch, and I can respect that.
And I actually liked her character. She's what you want a union representative to be. She was willing to go to the mat for the guy she was representing, and she did look so diminutive among them. Like, she was in with big kind of dock workers, and they all respected her, as they should, because she was willing to go to prison for them. In fact, probably willing to die for them, because she was right there when Garibaldi's men were coming in, when the Rush Act was called. She was going to stand with them. She wasn't just looking for money for herself, that some union people will do. She wasn't looking for prestige. She was looking for what was best for them.
Yeah, and I'll say this. Connolly reminds me in a lot of ways, and this is not because of my mother's or my grandmother's professions or anything, because they weren't in any type of unions. But she reminds me of both of them and everything. She may be small, but she is fierce, and she doesn't back down or take guff from nobody. And that's something that I can very much resonate with and everything on a personal level. And you want someone like Connolly that's not going to take crap from anyone, absolutely anyone, and that's going to back her people regardless of what's going on. She'll walk in there with the big boys. She does not give a hoot and hell and anything who she has to go up against, but she will do what she has to make sure that those dock workers get a fair shake. And Sinclair's in just as a bad position and everything, because EarthGov is telling him, well, this is the money that we can give you, and we can't give you any more than this. And if I remember correctly in this episode and everything, Sinclair comes up with a relatively ingenious way of fixing the situation, because he dips into another part of the Babylon 5 budget to get the dock workers at least a little more money or anything. I think he pulls it from the defense spending or something like that and everything to resolve the issue.
And I think he was looking to do that all along, but I noticed every time he tried to speak, either Naoma or Oren Zento shut him down. They didn't want to hear him. They were so fixated on each other, they couldn't see the solution that was standing between them.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you've got two people in a crowded room shouting at the top of their lungs, and then you've got a guy, okay, let me put it this way. You've got three people in an empty room, and the other two people are shouting so loud that they're drowning each other out, and the other person is trying to say, "Hey, guys, come here to the middle. I've got a solution." But the other two are too busy shouting at each other and calling each other names to hear each other out. And eventually, Sinclair finally drags them kicking and screaming and says, "Hey, look what I've got here. I've got a solution to this problem. Let's do it." And everybody's like, "Okay, yeah, we feel stupid now. Thanks, Sinclair." But in the same breath, they're like, "Dang, why didn't we think of that?"
I actually liked, was it the Senator Hidoshi? I know at the very start, he seemed as slimy as Zento.
Oh,
very
man.
smug, but when he dropped, and I think it's something that, Lower Runner talks about, that it's the masks. He was putting on the mask the same way as Jakar puts on a mask, the same way as Londo does. When he's representing his people, he drops his personality. And he was representing the slimier side of EarthGov. But when he became personal and said, "I really was rooting for you. I wanted you to get this because was it my grandfather or was a dock worker, and I believe it was New Colby Dockyards." So he wanted Sinclair to do well, and he was looking out for Sinclair, but he couldn't do anything because of the bureaucracy that pretty much caught up Connolly and Zento as well.
Yeah.
So it's a system rather than the people which choose people up.
Exactly.
And I suppose I know myself, my father was a member of a Labour Party. And so we would have been very pro-union growing up, but we mellowed a bit on that because we saw how some members of the union weren't actually looking out for the workers.
Yeah.
And we saw also how some owners weren't necessarily trying to stand on the people who worked for them. Everyone had their own agenda and budget, and you just had to be reasonable.
Yeah, and Garibaldi brings up an interesting little piece of old Earth history and everything when the dock workers start calling in. And I think I referenced this not too long ago on another stream or whatever. And when he's like, "Yeah, they're all coming down with the cases of blue flu," and Ivanovan's like, "The blue flu, what's that?" He's like, "Well, my I think he said it was like his grandmother or his mother or somebody was a police officer back on Earth. And when they couldn't get the conditions that they wanted and everything, they would all call in sick, except they weren't actually sick. It was called the blue flu." And that's a nice little touch and everything that Straczynski put into this episode and everything, because this is something that does still, I guess, that may happen in some places and everything, in some states and some cities or whatever, where the police force doesn't feel like they're being treated fairly, and they get a case of the blue flu. And that's one of those things that makes the episode a little more relatable. It makes the episode a little more or it makes the world a little more real and anything. Like, it connects back to real life history in our world and everything, even though it's in a fictionalized space. So
it does, because it actually was a case here in Ireland when the Gardaí, or that's the Irish name for police, to look for additional. That's the only resource they have. They have to call in on the blue flu. Now they'll leave enough for bare cover, but they will still. A lot of guys will call in sick if that's the case, or that's always been the threat. We kind of feel like there's something in the air, allergies maybe, or that they all suddenly come down with at the same time.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to remember. I do believe it happened not long ago, or it was a threat that it would happen. But it is a case they're not legally allowed to strike. So if they call a strike, they can be in serious trouble.
Yeah.
So it is very real. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Well, and the interesting thing about this episode is you see how hard these dock workers are busting their butts, and their requests, or even if you want to frame it this way, their demands are not unreasonable. They need more staff. They need more equipment. And the crazy thing, the thing that really amazes me is a station that size with as much traffic as that is coming through, why didn't they have enough budget for them in the first dang place? Which begs the question: what is the fictionalized economy of Babylon 5 really like? So because you're thinking, as much traffic as they get through that station on a daily basis, or even on a weekly basis, why don't they have more? Why don't they have more dock workers? Why don't they have more dock equipment that is updated or is in good repair, and what have you? And you're wondering who screwed the pooch? Who messed up the books on this one? Because
sorry, I cut you off there.
No, go ahead.
I think when it relates, I think it's season 2. It shows that there's still problems with budgets when they make Ivanova and Sheridan pay rent on their accommodation.
Yeah.
So they were penny pinching in there, and that goes to show that there is still issues with budget in season 2. So there must be some underlying issue.
Yeah, I would guess so, because you never hear about this stuff in Star Trek. There's never any mention of a budget and everything in Star Trek. So,
but it kind of makes sense, because this no universe has unlimited resources. And if they just burned up everything, it will be gone. So obviously they need to curtail things in some way, or to account for things in some way. And the entire galactic community here is based on is a cash or is a credit, money-driven society. Yeah. Because every race uses some form of currency.
Yeah.
And plot point in the very previous episode with the Centauri ducats.
Yeah. Exactly, because even though it's gone down basically to what they call a credit shit and everything that's in the their little comlink communicator thing and everything, it's still a form of currency and everything. Everybody gets paid. So,
yeah.
But and that's this is one of the few sci-fi series that I'm aware of and everything that does deal with any type of economic system within the universe. I mean, you do get references off and on to it in Star Wars and so on. And I think maybe they have something like that in, like, say, Firefly, or maybe even The Expanse, even though I haven't watched The Expanse. I know I should, but I haven't yet. Please nobody castigate me or cancel me for not watching The Expanse.
But I'm actually rewatching it myself at the moment, and I haven't seen seasons 3 or 4, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh, okay. But Babylon 5 is one of those shows that does have a fictionalized economy. And I think that's something that Straczynski did deliberately, because it does make the world feel more real and more relatable. And it's not to say that Star Trek feels any less organic or real or what have you, but it's an interesting touch and everything to add that layer into something that is a work of fiction. So,
yeah. And I think in what's his name, the dock worker whose brother was killed, it was Eduardo del Vientos.
Yeah.
In another episode, I think is it in season 2, he's interviewed by one of the documentary crews from ISM.
Yeah, I remember that.
He says he's working in Babylon 5 for his pension, which goes along with the idea of the economy.
Yeah.
In Star Trek, you're just provided for. In other places, it's other franchises, it's not mentioned how. Here it's saying he has to work hard, because he's been, what did he say? He was working in the docks for 40 years. Yeah. So he's already put in a lifetime's effort. And he's still working to provide for himself in his retirement. You would hope after 40 years done, you would have enough, but clearly he still has to work hard.
Oh yeah. Well, the other thing is that we sometimes gloss over, or maybe we don't pay much attention to, is that the further in you go into the station, or the lower decks or whatever, the lower levels of the station, things do get really lean. Things do look very desperate for those that come to the station hoping to find a better life, and unfortunately, they get stranded there, and that better life never materializes itself. And you think to yourself, goodness, why? This is 2258 and everything, and we're still struggling with poverty, except it's gone to a galactic scale rather than just a single world and everything. And it kind of makes you think, are we ever going to get beyond a point where we are operating on this type of economy? Now, am I saying I'm for like communism or socialism? Considering all the trouble that's been with those two systems, no, I am not particularly. But at the same time, you would think by the time we get to the year 2258, we had come up with something better. But fortunately, we haven't.
We would hope so, but I think it has a bit more realistic look at the future, because I don't think humanity will evolve to being altruistic in any time soon.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But yet there is, I see, evolution within the human condition, that people have accepted religious differences, racism within the human. Racism has begun to look outward rather than inward. It's still there in humanity, but you can see in the humans, it's no longer an issue. Skin color, race, religion, gender, orientation, anything is within themselves is no longer an issue. So they have taken a step forward, but class is still a one hurdle they have not overcome.
Unfortunately not. Yeah, unfortunately that is not the case, and that's, I think eventually, maybe in our lifetime, or maybe our children's lifetime, humanity will evolve beyond all this. And who knows? Maybe it'll take some other form of life finally making itself publicly known to the point where no government can refute it, and saying, "Hey, guess what? You're not alone out here. You're just in one little corner of one little speck of this great big cosmos." And I might be overly optimistic, hopeless optimistic, and I'll be the first to admit it. I am. But I like to believe that maybe someday I'll live to see a day when life spreads out from this small little sphere that we all inhabit, and maybe we finally grow up as a species and realize that we have a lot more in common with one another than we do that is not in common. So,
and it might just be that brings us together when we're in, was it Konstantin Tsiolkovsky said, Earth is a cradle of mankind, but one cannot stay in the cradle forever.
No,
and
we can't.
That just might be it, that when we instead of lying in our crib, when we start using our legs, we realize we need each other to get places.
Yeah.
And when you need somebody, when there's 20 people in a ship going somewhere, you can't say, well, I don't want to deal with you. You're the wrong gender. Yes.
Yeah.
You have to work together. It's like the phrase, there's no foxhole atheists. There probably is, but it means we work together. And it'll be the same thing, I believe.
Well, and we've seen this on a small scale with the International Space Station. And I think because you've got multiple different countries with all sorts of races on that station working together. And I mean, for heaven's sake, I know a lot of people have made this comment. And it's a sentiment that I share. I think Elon Musk is one of the most important people in the world right now, because he's the one trying to get us back to space, for crying out loud. And I think moving beyond this small little planet that we inhabit is one of the ways that we start to grow as a species. And maybe it's people like Elon Musk and whoever else geniuses that are out there, or people who have good networking skills and have the brains to say, you know what, it's time that we take that next big leap. We return to the moon. We go to Mars and wherever else our imagination and our will and our ingenuity can take us.
It's been my belief that instead of like saying, "Oh, we should go back to the moon," yes, Mars, yes, but I think the goal would say is the moons of Jupiter. And to
Maybe.
get there, we need to go to the moon. We need to go to Mars. Set a big
Yes.
goal for ourselves and use Mars, the moon, the asteroid belt as a small project to get. Well, I'm saying small project. It is the biggest project in human history. But
Yeah.
when we spread out that far, we have the resources of the asteroid belt. We have the ability. If we have the ability to get there and back in relatively quick time, which I know was it with Project Starshot. That's where they're using light to on solar cells to accelerate chips to high speeds.
Yeah.
Things may be happening for us quickly, and we'll be able to make such a great leap forward when we're out there and have access to resources that
Well,
we
and,
cannot.
and here's the other thing, and this is something that we're going to have to make a big leap on eventually, and it may take a lot of brains from everywhere to do this. We have to figure out how to break the faster the FTL barrier, the faster than light barrier. I know some people say, well, warp speed and light speed from like Star Trek and Star Wars is all fictional. I'm going to say no. There has got to be a way that we can break the speed of light. We've broken the speed of sound. We've broken the speed barrier itself. There has got to be a way. There's some genius out there sitting somewhere that's working on a device that will allow us to move faster than the speed of light. And once we crack that, we can go practically anywhere almost instantaneously. That's the thing.
Yes, I think as Fiona Wolf is mentioning it there, we need
Yeah,
first. We need the power source to do it,
we
but
do
I
need
don't
the power
think
source. I
that's
agree.
beyond us.
Well, and here's the thing: we're getting better with fusion all the time. We're getting better with cold fusion, and we're getting better with atomic power all the time, where we don't need as much shielding. And it's not a question of if; it's simply a question of when and who will develop it.
I
So,
believe it's helium-3 that's required for more efficient fusion, and that's in
yeah,
abundance on the moon. So
yeah,
that's part of the project of getting places.
yeah, exactly.
In
Gotta
fact,
have one.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
In fact, this very topic of Babylon 5, I believe in it, they said humans built communities. That
Yes.
Delenn said that if any other race had built it, it would have been just for themselves. But maybe humanity needs a Babylon 5. I know Isaac Arthur is talking about that on his channel, about building what's called the O'Neill sphere at one of the
Mm-hmm.
Lagrange points. Build that as a science station, as our project. Get us into
Yeah,
space.
and yeah,
Build Babylon 5 to build a human community where we can work together and where every race can look up and says, that's ours. Not
yeah,
America's, not Russia's, not the European Union's, not China's, all of ours. And
yeah.
that brings us together working for one goal.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree. I do. I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment. I mean, it's going to take all of us. It's not going to just take American minds or European minds or Russian minds or Chinese minds. It's going to take the best minds from everywhere for us to reach the stars. That's the truth of it. And that's what shows like The Expanse and Babylon 5 and Star Trek and even to an extent Star Wars do for us. And folks, I know we've gotten off on topic a little bit here, but I think this is something that we can all agree on. I think this is a topic and an idea that we can all gather around and say, yeah, I agree with this. Because that's what Babylon 5 brings us, even though with an episode like this, where you're dealing with a labor dispute and you're dealing with a personal dispute between two ambassadors on the station. this is a future we should aspire to one degree or another, where we work together as a community, where we're not divided. So,
in fact, I think in the episode itself, it was being in space itself gave Jakar his solution. That Sinclair came up with that brilliant idea of using the light coming from Narn to the station rather than the light on the homeworld. And as we move out into space, our perspective changes.
Exactly.
I mean, like our Muslim colleagues, which direction do they pray in? I think it was on the Mark Zickery's new show that is a point that it'll change perspectives, it'll change how we do things, it'll change how we work together. And it changed Jakar and gave him a solution, and something that probably all Narns will be doing from that point on.
Yeah, totally. So, okay. Well, I think honestly we've covered this episode fairly well and everything. Unless there's something else you want to touch on, Mountains.
No, I think we've covered the meat, bones, and some of the fat too. I think we done.
Yeah, to reference the episode. Yeah, we cut out the fat and everything, but we left the muscle and the bone. So, well, folks, we're going to go and wrap up here and everything. I want to thank Mountains for being with me this afternoon and everything for this discussion. I think it was a good one. We will be back on our normal day next Monday and everything with another episode of Afternoons with the Ambassador. Quick update and everything, a couple things for the channel. I'm working a different work schedule, so be expecting some additional videos coming out in the next couple of weeks or so. And this weekend, I'm going to be doing actually 2 streams. I'm going to do one Friday night. Everything. It might be a little later than normal because we got the in-laws are coming to visit for a little while. But I do want to bring you all an extra stream and everything because I do want to cover the films of Zack Snyder. So that'll be Friday night. No, wait a minute. I've got another stream Friday night. Oops, forgot about that. Well, there'll be another stream sometime Friday. But then Saturday night, 7:30 Central Time, we'll be back with another installment of the Ambassadorial Wing. And we'll be talking about the Mummy Trilogy. So be sure to tune in for that. So to everybody in the chat who showed up, Just Another Nerd, Fiona Wolf, Adega, for heaven's sakes, Darth Astor, welcome, sir. I hope you didn't think I was ignoring you. I appreciate you tuning in and everything. So y'all have a good day, have a good week, and until next time, this is the Ambassador, signing off.